Hello.
Welcome to the people side of change. So you guys don't feel left out. In the chat, and this is something for you to think about yourself, rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 on how comfortable you are with change, with 1 being the prospect of change fills me with abject terror, and 10 being I embrace every opportunity for change with gusto. All right, so I am David. I'm a business intelligence developer with SMPH, and I'm moderating today's session with Jesse Henderson, Ness Talby, Jen Qsted. Close? Qsted, that's right, Qsted, and Jacob Hand. We'll have some time at the end for Q&A. If you are joining us virtually, place your questions in the chat, and I'll read them to our presenters. If you are joining us in person, raise your hand, and I'll bring the microphone over to you. Now, I'd like to introduce you to today's presenters. Ness Talby is currently the Business Analysis and Change Management Associate Director in DoIT's Portfolio and Project Management Office. Over 16 years of experience as a consultant, developer, team lead, and business owner, Ness helps create Ness's unique perspective. Ness has led and managed change in multiple industries. Jess Henderson is an IT portfolio manager in DoIT's Portfolio and Project Management Office. She works with departments in DoIT to make their work visible in order to balance their efforts between business as usual and transformational change. Jessie served as the project manager for the AIMS transition project. Jenny Qsted is the chief advisor to the deputy chief information officer at DoIT. With an extensive background in human resources, Jenny specializes in leading efforts supporting organizational effectiveness, employee engagement, and leadership coaching and development. Jenny served as the change manager for the AIMS transition project. And finally, Jacob Hand is an internal consultant with UW's Office of Strategic Consulting. He works with clients across campus on organizational strategy, change management, organization and program design, and team climate and culture enhancement. Now that we've met the panel, I'm going to turn it over to our first panelist, Ness.
All right, can someone let me know the results of our poll in Zoom? I can't see them, so just wondering if anyone can give me a shout out what's there. And I want to take a quick poll of the room. So scale of 1 to 10, I'm gonna group you into different scaling here. So raise your hand if from a 1 to 3, your comfort level with change. Depends on the change. Good. Craig, keep me on my toes. It's good. Oh, excellent. Okay. Well, that seems consistent with our poll in Zoom because we had some 3s. All right, let's go from a 4 to a 6. All right, so in the room we have some hands up. Looks like in our poll we had 6% with a 4, 15% with a 5, and 17% with a 6. Okay, your comfort level will change 7 to a 9. Ooh, nice. It's a friendly room for change managers, Craig. We have to remember that. And then your comfort level will change a 10. Like you're completely comfortable. All right, Jesse, everyone's gonna know where you're coming from now. Okay, all right. Now I got a feel for the room. I think it's really important to know that people come from different places when we talk about change. To Craig's point earlier, it really depends on what the change is and what someone's comfort level will be. And I honestly didn't plan that with Craig beforehand, work with Craig. So, Craig, I won't pick on you the whole time, I promise. So I have the honor of giving us an introduction. So we're here to talk to you about the people side of change. And our slides are going to be focusing on a practical approach to incorporating organizational change management into large projects impacting IT and professional services. And I am on task now. I do have to click while I talk. And I am going to just give you a really high-level overview of what change management is, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jesse, Jenny, and Jacob. So what is change management? Change management is a structured approach and set of processes for managing the people side of change within an organization. So earlier today, we learned about 3 lenses. Picture one of those lenses being people. And it involves planning, executing, and communicating changes to help individuals and teams transition from the current state to a desired future state while minimizing resistance and maximizing adoption. I'll talk about that resistance point a little bit more in a bit. And then change management aims to ensure that changes are implemented successfully and that the intended benefits are realized. You heard 4 I's earlier. I'm going to share 4 different I's with you now that talk to what people's experiences should be like when they're going through change. People should feel involved. They should feel informed. They should be interested in that desired future state, and they should have influence over it. And so you're going to look at me and say, Ness, people can have influence over the changes that are happening to them. And I would like to say that as a change manager, I try to think of these things. There are big things, there are small things, but there's always something that the people who are impacted by the change can guide. So use that as your North Star when you're thinking about this. In IT, you'll also hear about another type of change management, which is IT change management. It's a part of information technology infrastructure, or ITIL. But today you're going to be hearing about, and we're going to be discussing, organizational change management. Occasionally you may hear us use OCM. That's what we mean when we say that. Which is about supporting and helping people, teams, and organizations through change. So I'm going to use some fluffy words here and fancy words to describe what activities that might involve. So that could involve change impact assessments, stakeholder analysis, communication planning, training and development, resistance management, but instead think transition support. If you really want to help people through change, don't think of it as resistance, think about how you can help them transition with transition support. And it's about reinforcement to celebrate wins, which we just heard about earlier. Small wins are important. And to continue to revisit and understand the needs of the people going through that change. So to sum that up with less fancy words, it's about having conversations, having connections with the people impacted by the change, and building relationships with them. So why do you want to hear more about this today? What's the need? Well, here's a fact, 70% of change initiatives fail. I'd rather think they stall out. Focusing on the people side of change will greatly increase your chances of defying those odds. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jesse, Jenny, and Jacob. They're going to use a case study to help us learn more.
All right, hi everyone. As the project manager, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the context of this project so you can understand the space we're operating in for the change management. So the project is, oops, I have to now do the clicking. The AIMS Transition Project. So this was initiated by the Vice Chancellor for Finance Administration with the directive to unify the organization providing IT to the VCFA, which was the Administrative Information Management Services Group, or AIMS, with the Division of IT, DoIT. The purpose of the unification was to work towards a comprehensive approach to evolving university information technology needs and services and align with industry best practices. So we wanted to optimize the delivery of essential IT services, minimize risk through focused IT security, and control growth of competing services on campus. So to give you an idea of the scope of the project, we are going to walk really quickly through a timeline of it. It was initiated in April of 2021, and we just celebrated its close last month. So in April of 21, the VCFA announced that AIMS would be integrated into DoIT. And from July of 21 to June of 22, AIMS joins DoIT as a standalone organization. And that during that year, DoIT and AIMS leadership spend the time planning for integration and unification. So the project manager, myself, and change manager, Jenny Quisted, joined in the spring of 2022. Organizationally, by September 22, AIMS integrates into DoIT with new team structures and managers, but those largely resemble organization from before the merger. In October of 2022, after a summer of intensive planning, we kicked off the project officially. And that was divided into 7 distinct work streams. Those were staff cross-training, unified points of contact, knowledge management, service operations, billing, customer migrations, and integration of our ITSM tools. By April 2023, we reached our first major milestone, which was unifying our points of contact. That meant we merged into our single ITSM tool, and we were using a single phone number, a single email, portal, chat in order to support customers. In June of 23, we were about a year into unifying, and we came together to celebrate our achievements at that point. And then we kind of realigned and redesigned the remainder of the work into 8 refreshed and or new work streams. And so we had customer migrations, service operations, and knowledge management continuing on for another year. And then we had 5 new work streams in endpoint management, hardware and logistics, unified help desk, unified desktop support, and then inventory and asset management. Oops, sorry. And then just to mention, oops, sorry. Whoa. Sorry. During the summer of 2024 was when we closed out several of those work streams, and recognizing that we accomplished a lot, but we still had more work to do, and that a lot of that work could be integrated into operational teams and their annual planning. We did establish a steering committee over the service of departmental tech support, and we spun up a few separate efforts to continue a project-based approach to some unification. And as I mentioned, just last month, we held a celebration to officially close the project. So in order to set the project up for success, we laid out 6 very specific goals. 4 of them are listed on the slide here, as well as a number of desired outcomes. And we put those in our charter to help guide us through the project. Our 6 goals focused on merging into a single point of contact, which I mentioned was our first major milestone, and all of that under the DoIT umbrella. We wanted to analyze systems and processes and make sure we took the best of both organizations as we came together. We needed to adopt a single financial model, and in this case, DoIT moved to the AIMS model of billing. We wanted to make sure teams were integrated by September 1, 2022, as we mentioned on the timeline. And another goal was to make sure that those staff transitions followed HR policies and were equitable and transparent. And overall, we also had a goal to ensure that there were no major disruptions and that we maintained service levels. Additionally, in the charter for the project, we outlined some desired outcomes that I think really set us up to guide the project well through the project management side and the change management side. So those outcomes revolved around people, process, and technology. So the things that were stated in the charter around people is that we said we want to make sure staff feel informed, are engaged, and the transition is handled with compassion within an environment of psychological safety. To make sure that key stakeholders that are involved in the transition are informed, and that there would be no involuntary staff reduction because of this project. Regarding process, we wanted to, again, make sure we maintain levels of service to our contract partners, that internal and external stakeholders receive regular updates about our processes, and again, that we're evaluating and taking the best of both throughout all the work streams. Around technology, we wanted to make sure we mitigated or solved for technical debt and the total cost of ownership, and that shared services were leveraged whenever possible to increase efficiency. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the structure that was set up to support this project so that we'd have the best chance of success. And that is kind of reflected in what Prosci calls the 3 legs of a balanced stool. It's a metaphor they use to demonstrate an ideal balanced approach to projects that entails a lot of change. And Jenny's going to talk a little bit more specifics about Prosci, but I just want to highlight the visual we have on the slide here is what's referred to as their Prosci change triangle. And it has those 3 legs of the stool, which is leadership, sponsorship, project management, and change management. So for the leg of leadership sponsorship, we had an identified sponsor who understood their role in the project, as well as an accountable director throughout the entire project. For the project management side, there was a project manager dedicated, which was myself. And I met regularly with divisional leadership teams that planned for those HR and finance goals. I met regularly with the project planning team, and we worked on those process and technology goals. I met one-on-one with the change manager and the communications lead, and I also led all the work streams through the project. And for that change management leg, a change manager was assigned, which was Jenny, and she met regularly with a transition monitoring team that was set up. She was also part of the project planning team, and she consulted on and off with the Office of Strategic Consulting. So I'll hand it over to Jenny to talk about the practical application in this project.
All right, thank you, Jesse. So as Jesse mentioned, the AIMS organization had joined DoIT, and about a year after that is when I was added to the project, and then also when Jesse joined the project shortly thereafter. So my mission when I joined was to establish a change management plan and then oversee that plan. So I'm going to walk you through at a really high level what that entailed. So this here is a diagram showing three basic components, including the first one, which is foundational tools. So we used foundational tools like ADKAR to help gather information and measure different change elements. Second, role plans define activities to support important change management roles and responsibilities, particularly for sponsors and people managers. Third, activity plans detail specific steps and actions needed for things like communications and training. And so together, these things make up a robust, comprehensive plan for managing change. There are several other tools and plans and things that you would be using that aren't displayed here in this streamlined view. But I found this to be a really helpful, more simplified view that we could use when introducing what change management is and what an actual plan would involve during the project. There are some bonus slides that you'll also find in our slide deck if you look at the slide deck provided after the conference, and that provides more depth to some of these things as well. So why Prosci? One of our key decisions in forming our organizational change management plan was to use the Prosci methodology. And there are a number of reasons why we made that decision and also why I became certified through Prosci leading up to this project. So Prosci is a leader in the field of change management with over 25 years of change management research. They're also well known for research-based methodologies, and that gives us access to the industry's largest body of change management research. Prosci also has a worldwide presence in 80% of Fortune 100 companies. So it's these reasons that DoIT's Project and Portfolio Management Office and the UW Office of Strategic Consulting recommend and use Prosci methodology. On campus, we now have a large population who are certified Prosci change practitioners, and that helps us with building a common language and practices across campus. So as you get started with organizational change management for a project or initiative, it's important that you survey the project and environment landscape. There's a number of questions you should be asking initially. For example, what project structures and artifacts already exist? Change management and project management don't exist in silos, and they must be integrated. And so as a change manager, you need to be integrated into the project structures and existing framework. Taking into account these details and structures will help you learn about the project, the impacted individuals and key stakeholders, all of which are critical to the ultimate change adoption. Assessing skills and resources that are needed to effectively implement change management is also critical before jumping into this work. So one question you should explore is what change management training or education is needed as part of the organizational change management strategy. You might need time to enhance your own change management skills and knowledge. Your organization and project teams may require information about what change management actually is and why it's important. Asking these things will help you more accurately estimate the time and resources that are needed to do this work effectively. In the case of the Ames Transition Project, I consulted with Jacob Hahn with the Office of Strategic Consulting, who was a skilled resource, a thought partner, and a collaborator, and I was extremely appreciative of this small investment that we made to provide me with that scaffolding as I got into this work. So the importance of collaboration between the project manager and the change manager cannot be overstated. Depending on the project, you might fill both roles, or there might be individuals doing that work in two different roles. So I encourage you to carefully assess whether you can include different individuals and skill sets to account for the diverse needs when managing both the technical side of change as a project manager and the people side of change as a change manager. Whether it's one or more individuals, responsibilities must have clear ownership, yet overlap and integrate as the practices mature throughout the project life cycle. So within the change management plan, earlier I was showing you that sponsors and people managers are called out as unique stakeholders, each requiring role plans. The primary sponsor authorizes the change and is ultimately accountable for ensuring the desired outcomes of the change are realized for the organization. And Prosci research shows that year after year, the number one contributor to project success is active and visible sponsorship. Sponsors often do not understand their role and may struggle with fulfilling their roles leading change. People managers also play a crucial role in the success of change initiatives due to their direct relationship with employees. Employees prefer to receive personal messages about changes from their immediate managers, and people managers are the ones that can build trust and buy-in for change by effectively communicating and supporting their teams. Most Prosci research participants report that their organizations did not adequately prepare managers or supervisors with the skills, training, and tools they needed to lead during change. With the AIMS project, we did identify a gap in the resources and time invested in the people managers, considering their extensive roles in these changes. To address this, I held interactive sessions where we learned about change management with people managers. We explored timely project needs to support staff, and then we used tools to assess the needs of the people managers in their role of leading their teams. This slide here is just showing you an example of what our actual role plan looked like for a sponsor. It's just a snippet of it, but it helped our sponsor so he could fulfill his role of active and visible sponsorship. The goal is to make it easy for the sponsors to do what's needed to fulfill their role in change management. So an iterative review and improvement as you use your foundational tools will help you identify activities and to prioritize them. I wanted to share a quote from a former executive of a Fortune 20 telecommunications company that I really liked. And it says, "You know which teams got the best sponsorship from me? The ones that told me exactly what they needed me to do." Fortunately, when I joined the project, there was a transition monitoring team already formed. The former user services director had initiated this team and led it, and I attended it and then eventually led it myself. This team was made up of at least one representative from each impacted team. So there were about 12 employees who regularly attended these meetings. The goal of the team was to foster real conversations about the change. So that included the good, the bad, and the ugly, and provided sponsors with the sponsor with perspectives that we wouldn't have otherwise received, and to form more of a relationship between leadership and team members. I'm really appreciative of this group. They were very generous and candid with both feedback and questions, and gave us important insights so that we could provide timely information to help support the project better. The idea for creating this team came from the book Managing Transitions by William and Susan Bridges, which was read by leadership and complements the change management work really nicely. One thing we hear talked about quite often is the ADKAR model, and the Prosci ADKAR model is one of two foundational models of the Prosci methodology. The word ADKAR is an acronym for the 5 outcomes an individual needs to achieve for a change to be successful. So starting from the left, we are working from awareness of the need for change, through desire to participate and support the change, knowledge on how to change, ability to implement desired skills and behaviors, and then reinforcement to sustain the change. The ADKAR model is based on the understanding that organizational change can only happen when individuals change. Guiding individuals through a particular change and addressing any roadblocks or barriers along the way, starting with, again, awareness on the left, and then working all the way through reinforcement on the far right. Each element of ADKAR is iteratively measured using an assessment with the goal of overcoming barriers to change adoption throughout the project lifecycle. In this slide here, I've applied an example of a project milestone showing a go live date of April 19th. And with that is the ability milestone to be met by April 1st. And so that would allow for the preparations leading up to that go live date and ultimately then reinforcement thereafter. This example is an ADKAR assessment that I completed with the people managers. And ADKAR assessments should be completed at different points during the project. This assessment was just 5 simple questions, 1 for each ADKAR element. In this example, the average rating was 4.0 for awareness, responding to the question of rate the degree to which your team is aware of the reasons for change. This next slide shows the ratings for all of the ADKAR elements at that particular point in time. And the barrier point here is identified looking left to right with the first element that rates as a 3 or lower. Desire is the barrier point at this point in time. And this gives us information as to which strategies we need to focus on enhancing desire. The ADKAR model is sequential but not always linear, which means that stages must occur in a specific order for successful change. So for example, an individual needs to be aware of the need for change before they can develop a desire to support it, and so on. While the stages are sequential, individuals may move back and forth between them. So for instance, someone might initially develop the desire to change, but then realize they need more knowledge to proceed effectively. This can cause them to revisit the knowledge stage, so we might see scores dip down in knowledge, and then we would focus again on building knowledge at that particular point in the project. We also surveyed staff using a more robust survey. So we surveyed staff 3 times over the course of 2 years. And this example here shows a few of the questions that we asked and how we mapped them to the ADKAR elements. With impacted staff, we wanted to know more than just those 5 basic ADKAR element questions. And so these surveys were iterative and gave us really important and crucial information that helped guide both our strategies and our communications. This also helped us work with the project team as well as the people managers to provide clarity, hold timely conversations, and meet people where they were at. We also had open text feedback that was given, and that helped us understand more about why people were rating things the way that they were. During the project, staff consistently reported strong support and communications with their leadership team members, and that was a real asset to the project as well. So communications considerations may be an implied part of project management and change management, but it's important to ensure that you're proactively planning and delivering information to target audiences, using relevant communication channels with the information that's needed at the time. And we were fortunate enough to have a dedicated communications partner that was included in our collaboration and planning throughout the entire project. This is just an example of a communications plan. This is not just a log where you're tracking past activity, but where you're proactively planning so that you are meeting your timelines and accountable individuals are knowing who they are and when things are due. So in summary, I hope that this has sparked a few ideas as to how you can use foundational tools like ADKAR to gather information, that you can manage role and activity plans to provide support and clear direction, resulting in a comprehensive change management plan through involvement and encouragement. So I'm now going to turn it over to Jacob Hahn with the Office of Strategic Consulting.
Thanks. Just a couple of thoughts from my position as a consultant helping out with this project. First and foremost, all credit here to the team, specifically Jesse and Jenny. They did the hard work. I got to show up as a thought partner and share some new ways of thinking, some other possibilities to consider, etc. But these individuals did all the hard work and the heavy lifting. As somebody in my work as an internal consultant, I get to work with clients across campus on a number of different types of organizational effectiveness initiatives. Strategic planning, strategy development, organ program design, climate and culture, all of those things, we work to bake change management into what we're doing and the ultimate outcomes with clients. But also, and I think one of the ways that where I think we're finding a lot of effectiveness in addition to those things is to be able to show up with leaders on campus as a thought partner. You want to make X happen? How can we sit with you through this process to help kind of define and clarify what it is we want to make happen, using some of our specific knowledge as internal consultants to kind of help out and to really rich in the process and what we're creating, while at the same time working with clients who are the subject matter experts. In this case, right, I'm no kind of IT expert. I'm no kind of any kind of expert at any of the many different subject matters across the university. But where we can, add some benefit is in our knowledge of these models and tools and how they can be applied in different sorts of circumstances. One thing that I think is really worth mentioning here, though, as somebody who sees a lot of change happening across campus, is and what's heartening to me, hearing many of you say you're open to change and excited about change. This is great because the pace of change isn't lessening. As old systems and structures, we see this happening, kind of break down and call for change. We're at a place, I think societally, but really if we're focusing on the university here, where a lot of things need to change, and we have to change how we're operating, how we're interacting and working with one another, how we're seeing things. And to many who are less enthusiastic about change, we're going to just see more and more and more and more initiatives kind of piling up, both from the ground up and from the top down, right? And so more change is happening, and the more that we can get people conversant in an understanding of the elements of change and transition, the better off we're going to be there. So just a couple of things worth considering here.
Okay, and I'm here to share a little bit about change management at DoIT. So you're speaking with me again, so I'm going to ask a question as you raise your hands. How many of you before today knew DoIT had a portfolio and project management office? Thankfully, I can raise my own hand. Okay, excellent. It's a good portion of the room. So we have some socialization to do, that's okay. In DoIT, we're investing in organizational change management practitioners. These skills complement every discipline in the portfolio and project management office. We have portfolio managers, such as Jesse, who serve DoIT, as well as project managers, business analysts, and change managers who support UW-Madison and the universities of Wisconsin, so beyond DoIT. Right now, we're forming communities of practice in our division and at the campus level. Feel free to reach out to Craig or me if you're interested in either of those two. There's a DoIT change management community of practice that's meeting monthly, and there's going to be an exploratory session for campus community of practice for organizational change management in January. We're defining and we'll soon share learning pathways for individuals. So if you want to learn more, hopefully we'll have a nice little one sheet that's easy and shareable, as well as for divisions and schools on campus, because how an organization thinks about change management and measures it, they can also go through their own learning journey. We're also advocating for common frameworks so we can develop a common understanding and language on campus to support each other through change initiatives, like Jacob talked about. And I have paper and a clicker and all the things that's happening. Before I share some change management resources with all of you, I do want to give you a little helpful reminder. The first step is understanding who is impacted by the change and why. Then identify how they're impacted and what their needs are. And then lastly, find ways to meet them where they're at and know when new barriers arise. In our presentation, we talked about a few different change management resources. I'm going to highlight them again. There's Prosci, which is, you'll also hear it referred to as ADKAR. It is the industry standard. They have lots of free resources on their website, and they have a great change management practitioner training. There's the WINS 3-stage model of change, McKenzie's 7 S's, Bridges transition model, and Cotter's change management theory. I lean into what Jenny said earlier. I really like Bridges transition model. I feel like it's very complementary. And when I've gone to other change management presentations, people tend to lean into their visuals to help you understand where people are at. And then overall, I want to thank you for attending today. We appreciate the opportunity to share experiences with you. And now we're going to get to the Ask Us Anything part of our presentation. So we're here. We'd love to answer your questions and let us know what you need.
So we have some things in the chat. First off, from Scott Winger, the celebrations were really important trust-building events. Thank you. There are and were many specific tactical wins that the transition monitoring team delivered. The monitoring team was also able to stress hot spots. And by taking these stress factors seriously and asking essential follow-up questions and delivering on promises to provide authoritative answers to sensitive and sometimes hot topic questions, the transition monitoring team effectively and humanely managed our stress hot spots. All right, so a question now from, if I can scroll, a question from Robert Merrill. Where did the future state description come from? Did the team have anyone filling a business analysis role? These role interactions are very interesting and we're still sorting them out.
Robert, thanks for the question, and also a quick shout out to Scott. Thanks for that comment. And Scott was part of the transition monitoring team and one of our change champions during the transition. So Robert, actually, Jenny and I were both brought onto the project after the charter was written. So that was very conscientiously created by some leadership with Dave Pagenkoff, Tamara Walker. And I don't recall if there was a BA involved in that early year, that first year where we were doing planning, but there was a lot of planning sessions that were taking place among leadership. I don't know if some folks in the room who might have some knowledge there could share. I'm just aware, so I had joined DoIT in May of 2022, so I was not even in the organization as this first year of planning was happening. And I know there were several design sessions that were happening around how are we gonna break this thing apart and figure out how to put it back together.
Hi there, thanks for all that information. Question regarding when you mentioned the feedback portion, showing a survey. Kind of two questions around that. One, strategies to get responses. I mean, just what percentage of responses would be a successful response rate for your team? And then also, you know, generally that response rate is not 50%. It might be lower than that. How do you handle that data, knowing there might be some, you know, the sort of people that might respond may be weighing down the results in some way? Probably better words for that, but.
Okay, so yeah, thank you for the question. I think those are important things to think about when you're looking at really what's the validity of what we've gathered here and what are we still missing. And so we really relied on the Prosci research to say that, you know, people managers are the ones that can really help promote responses to these surveys. Sometimes there's, you know, trust or concern as to whether that's even a good use of time. So to really ask people managers to lean into the fact that we need this information And we want as many people to respond as possible so that we have a better sense of, the information across many people and many teams. That said, I don't know that we set a benchmark for like what was a good number or what was enough, but I think to complement the actual survey data, our team conversations, one-on-one conversations, and we talked about the timing of those things and what types of messages or types of feedback we needed along the way. And so looking at, hey, what I'm hearing from my team is different than maybe what we heard more broadly with the survey, and then continuing to just try to make sense of that in totality, and not to be distracted by perhaps there's a few people who feel really strongly about some things that we're out of control on or we're not able to quickly resolve. And so trying to really continue the steady progress to be responsive, but also not knee-jerking, to and fro. Does that answer your question?
I've got a little something to add too. I just say one of the really important things to consider here with a survey like that, and I even I don't even know that we would necessarily want to call it a survey, right? Because that brings up specific things in people's minds. I tend to think of it often as like a pulse check. We're not using this data to create any sort of scientific research or anything like that off of. It's a pulse check of seeing where folks are in the in the organization and how they're feeling. I think like Jenny said, it's really important to message it with, we want to know how you're feeling regardless of how you're feeling. If you're pissed, let us know. If you're super happy, let us know. If you're somewhere in between, we'd also love to hear from you. What we can often count on within an organization is you'll see about 20% of people being big detractors from the change, about 20% of people being huge supporters of the change, and like a big middle of like 60% of individuals being like, I can like kind of go either way or may, depending kind of on the day, right? And so I think it's really important to just, use that information as like okay, here's where things are sitting today. This was a thing we sent out at one moment in time. Somebody could have had a really bad day when they filled out the survey. Somebody could have had a really great day when they filled out the survey. Their opinions may change, and they often do as kind of today's day-to-day goes on. And so taking all of that data, I think really for what it's worth, and use it, like to base actions off of, but also don't take it as like a gospel of like, this is exactly how people in the organization are feeling.
And then I just build on that and say, also be aware of who's not responding, because what people are not saying can also help us identify barriers. And a survey shouldn't be our only way of connecting with people. So think about that as well. We can do outreach, and you don't have to do a survey in the traditional sense. You can also do a survey through conversations, smaller focus groups. You can also invite people into a space and reduce the barrier for completing a survey. To Jacob's point, we might not want to refer to it as a survey. And just reassess too, like how much information are we asking from people right now? Because if you can ask for information in smaller increments, it'll probably help for the pacing of the program or the project, as well as pacing the change for them.
We have time for one final question, and we have one in the chat. How do you motivate team members who are uncomfortable with change and new technologies?
I mean, there's no substitute in my mind for relationship, right? And I think that that's center to like the whole point of our talk today, right? The people side of change at base is about relationship, right? And so you're not going to win that resistant individual over by issuing edict or by continuing to say this is the standard, this is the expectation. But it's going to happen through relationship, through getting to know that individual and like what's the reasoning behind your reticence to use that tool or whatever it might be. Jenny talked a little bit about this tool, right? And that's the importance of the managers in any kind of change initiative. And that's where the support and the relationship and the understanding with the organization all occurs. And so ensuring that if you know an individual is resistant to something, that the manager is in regular communication with them and deepening their relationship and understanding like what's happening with you that's making you resistant, and how can we work through that to help you in your adoption of it.
And often people who are resistant to change have the best ideas for how to make things better for other people in that space. They're able to point out like what are the flaws in the system that you're trying to give to me. What is the training that we might need? And if you can, I would say, truly embrace what their perspective is, you're going to have a better time with transition support. You're also, if you do have small wins with resistors, they can also become your biggest advocates, especially if they're able to point something out and change the entire program or projects team mental model around what it is we're trying to do. Because oftentimes we're talking about what we want to do in a way that's not resonating with that person. And it might be because we don't understand the impact on them and what they do. So it's really important to explore that and to make them feel invited to the space. I know that there's that 80%, right? 80% really goes really well, and then 20% is a little bit harder. But if you do a little bit of outreach to that 20% early on, it's gonna help you work with that other 80% even more at a deeper level and be ready to engage with the other 20% when you reach that point, when they're ready to change.
All right, thank you, panel, for that great discussion today. And we invite everyone to stay in here for our final closing remarks. That will be happening right after this. But thank you for coming.